I'm going to give you the most important person for Nebraska's entire football season, Tony White.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey gang, PP here, Locked On Huskers. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. We're fired up and headed towards opening day, August 31st. Lots to talk about, lots to give you. But first, Mark Onweiler, would you please let them know about FanDuel?
Thank you, DP. This episode of Locked On Huskers is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season's about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win during the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and start earning your bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. DP, back to you.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Again, if you have not subscribed, please pause, hit the subscribe button, share the content, please do, and then reach out. Feel free to put your comments down in the comment section as we go through this episode. And in this episode, I want to talk about Tony White and this defense, some of what's on the depth chart and how it appears to be playing out, some names to look forward to, and then the theory behind the 3-3-5 and what my hope is you're trying to accomplish in using it, the problems that it will cause in the Big Ten and why. Some things that we'll have to go through. But the name that excites me the most and about Nebraska football, look, there are a ton of players who are just exceptional young men. The coaching staff, up and down, you see the points of interest, you see the professionalism, you see the high level and the competency. What you then ask for is who's going to be the flavor that makes the punch go, right? We need the straw that stirs the Kool-Aid. That's what we need to do. And to me, as much as this is a Matt Rule team, the vibe and energy has to come from defensive coordinator Tony White. And here's the buy-in, that being creative enough in what you do. Coaches coached how they play. You're the same person that still exists. Tony White as a linebacker playing in high volume, high frequency, high quality programs, then has the ability to transfer and translate some of that stuff into what Nebraska needs to be and what Nebraska needs to do in the Big Ten Conference. Now, he was talking today, and a big part of it was really breaking down the philosophy of what he wanted to do. And I said in hearing him that, okay, can I buy into this? And here's the thing. He said, I think the biggest thing is putting guys in positions where they can be successful. Every play on defense is designed to do something. There are two categories for our defense, right? We're trying to stop what the offense is doing to us, or there's a certain emphasis on self-scouting. So that's knowing what you do, knowing who you are, and most importantly, the things that you can execute at the highest frequency, highest effectiveness, highest current. So can we do this good thing the most often, all the time, no matter the situation and circumstance? And what the 3-3-5 allows you to do is to be, ready for this, defensively offensive. That they're able to attack what teams have shown that they care to do, want to do, or going to try to do. And then taking that thing away aggressively. And that is sometimes by personnel. Sometimes that is by scheme. Sometimes is about mind game. And sometimes it's just about running through the wall. And to be able to do that and to have sometimes in the 3-3-5 being able to flex and be up front and sit extra bodies up front to crush the run. And we know the teams in the Big Ten Conference that like to focus on the run. And which areas of run, which styles of run. Some will two-back it. We know that some folks in the Big Ten will have a big pounding fullback and a scat back behind them. Some will throw two tight ends out there using 7 linemen or maybe 7 linemen and a wide receiver to create space. and to create gaps, and hopefully that they can just pound and pound and pound. But there are some offenses in the Big Ten that are skill-based. They are speed-based. They are throw the ball, spread the defense, and throw the ball in space, and then hope that you are more athletic in that space than your opponent. And previous Nebraska defenses had some issue with that. But in this year's version, in this year's episode of Nebraska football, the 5 defensive backs allow you to have Swiss Army knives that you can put into any situation that can handle any situation, at least specifically for down and distance or time of game. You may not want to play 5 defensive backs over the course of 16 minutes on defense. You may not want them on the field for all of your first downs against a team that likes to run the ball up the middle consistently. But teams that throw the ball in that space, you can prepare for that and you can take that away. Now, if this is a physical team, you can throw extra bodies from the back end to the front end. Again, remember that you can take that 3-3-5 and turn it into any variance of things, whether it be zone or man, whether it be some combo coverage, whether it's a 5-3 or 3-4 or 4-3 with 4 in the back. You could 4-4-3 this thing. If you feel like Michigan has got you on your heels in the run game, you can go 3-4-4. If you're playing against Ohio State and they're spreading you and they're dinking and dunking, you can move things in place depending on who it is. If it's Purdue and they've got a big pounding fullback, you can slide into that 4 and then even a 5, right, to take away some of those gaps and to free up those linebackers to just step into gaps and make plays. If you want to change your pass pressure on the opposing quarterback, what you do in that space is to misidentify or misrepresent what you're trying to do against a Big Ten defense. I can show you a 3 front and end up bringing 5 and then making you figure out, well, wait a minute, we accounted for 3. I'm looking to help on the outside defensive end, and then you bring a linebacker in the gap. You've created a problem, and it could throw the whole play off. You could show a 5-man front and drop into a 3-man front. And Tony White has the ability to do so. He's shown the history. What he did at Syracuse was profound in that he wanted to be sure that offenses had to question what it was that he was going to do and drumroll, when he was going to do it. The easiest thing to attack in all of football is when you know where defenders are, who they are, and what their responsibilities are. And if you don't know that offensively, it puts you under duress. It puts you in a tough situation, and that's what Tony White and this defense will have the ability and right to do. And I'm excited because there's a lot of chess play that's going to happen on Big Ten Saturdays when it comes to Tony White and his 3-3-5 defense. He mentioned pieces, putting pieces in place where they could be players in play and in place when they could be successful. So that is how you break down some of the players that are in play. And we'll go through some of those players to know about, players to think about, different situations and circumstance. More of that when we come back to Locked On Huskers. Hey, Gang, DP here, Locked On Huskers again. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day, for hanging out with me for these 20-plus minutes each day as we rev up the engine, man. We start drinking the Kool-Aid. We start, you got to stretch the hamstring so you don't pull one jumping up after a touchdown. Get that lower lumbar loose, right? Because you're going to be sitting in fan position, whatever your fan position is, because some of you are standers, some of you are sitters, some of you are folks that simply, you know what? You walk in a circle. You walk in a circle. You never settle down. So you got a couple of weeks to get yourself game ready for August 31st. Beat Minnesota. That's the entire focus of all of this, is beat Minnesota. Teach and learn and repeat all the things that you can, that you think you need to beat Minnesota. And we don't know what this version of Minnesota looks like. But more importantly, we have some resume, we have some tape on what PJ Fleck and this offense likes to do. And if you're Tony White, he's faced that offense, so he had some idea and he had some success. Then the question is fitting players to those situations and circumstances that Tony White is going to come with. And I think the big position to think about is actually the rover position. And here's a big thing in the 3-3-5. So if you figure, let's just throw three names together for the 3-3-5, the front three. And what I would imagine, again, just imagine, and I'm not saying don't put it in concrete, don't put it in Sharpie, right? Don't write it in ink. This is, you can dry erase this, or you can type it in your phone and then delete it. But I would imagine Ty Robinson in the middle, at nose tackle, defensive end. I think the words are that Blaise Gunnerson, AJ Rollins, and Prince. Let me get used to saying this. Uman Mielen. Prince, Uman Mielen. Of those three, one will end up at what I would consider the athletic defensive end. And then at the other end, it's Elijah Judy. Brody Tangaloa was in the conversation until his injury. Cameron Linhart, another freshman. And I just want to pause for a second. That there's a possibility that Nebraska could have two freshman defensive ends on the field, defensive linemen on the field for Minnesota. If it's play one and they line up that way, don't be surprised. Which tells me, one, you've got some talent and you're in the development stage, which some people will drop their shoulders and go, oh man, I want to win now. I don't want to develop. But they have something, and they have two defenders. Having Elijah Judy, having Chief Borders on the other side next to MJ Sherman. There are times when Chief Borders and MJ Sherman will be on the field as well. Sometimes you can push one of those defensive ends inside. You can push Linhart inside and bring Sherman from the outside. I would imagine MJ Sherman, Luke Reimer, Nick Henrich, Isaac Gifford as the rofer. But those three linebackers, MJ Sherman, Reimer, Henrich, seem to be the three that you're going to put your deposit on. This is your bail money. You get in trouble. This is who we got. And behind them, there's Chief Borders. John Bullock has been the name that folks have really have gone past whispering to full-on yelling about his ability to make plays. And then I'm slightly surprised because Jamari Butler was in the fold. As a matter of fact, at the end of last season, you would have penciled him in as this year's starter at one of those linebackers positions. And it either says you actually have more talent at that position than you thought, or he is not developing at the level you thought he was. As I said, the position that gives me the most questions, holds the most responsibility. And get this, there will be times when not only one of them will be on the field, but two of them will be on the field, and maybe even three of them on the field. Because the rover is the X factor. They can be in pass coverage. They can be in pass pressure. They can be in run support. They can be in man coverage. You can highlight them and put them either over the top of a tight end, over the top of a slot receiver. You can put them under so that they're taking away crossing routes in short space. They can jump routes from the hash to the numbers. There's a thing that you can do with them to walk them up the middle to change who the read is for opposing teams' offenses. If you don't know, and we know with Javen Wright, we've seen him in full, but the Isaac Gifford has been the rover of conversation in this camp. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I would imagine that there are going to be times that both of them are on the field at the same time because it's going to force offenses in the Big Ten to question what it is that Tony White is getting ready to try to accomplish. Wait a minute, is he defending the run with these two big rovers, or is he defending the pass with these two athletic rovers? I don't know. Maybe he's going to force one into run slots and then drop the other into medium space where, they tell you, feel pressure, throw the pressure. But if Tony White is replacing pressure with that second rover, it could cause some problems. And Big Ten quarterbacks, the top half of the league, pretty good about reading that. Bottom half of that league, not so much. So there are going to be some problems with how he lines up and how he makes plays this year. I think there are a few more names I want to go through, and we'll get into the defensive back category when we come back to lockdown. But here's the thing. Tony White has some chess pieces. They're not all kings. They're not all queens. They're not all pawns. Some have very special skills that move them in very special spaces in unique ways. He now has another 2 weeks to kind of test the toys, move them around, see what parts function well together, what kind of chemistry there is, and then using the word that will matter most for Tony White this year, find out who he trusts. Who does he trust the most? Who does he trust to make plays? Who does he trust to sacrifice themselves and their body in the run game? Who is willing to communicate at the highest level in the biggest crowds about the pass game and adjustments and audibles and change of pressure and change of gap responsibility? Who does he trust to see what he's training them to see? Who's going to get in game situation and know exactly what Tony White wants done in that situation? If this, then that. Who does he trust to do that? It is an important phase of camp. It's a big deal. Tony White has his hands full, but I tell you what, I feel pretty good about it. That's the truth. Before the break, we'll come back. We'll give you a few more of those names to watch, especially on the back end. Those DBs, those all position playing DBs, those safeties and cornerbacks. Hey, they're all DBs. We'll have that conversation when we come back to Locked On Huskers. Hey, gang, it's been a great episode. Thank you for hanging out with me here. And again, if you have not subscribed, hit the pause button, subscribe. See that name there, that @Derrick Pearson? Feel free. Follow me there. You can ask me questions. A lot of you do, and it's greatly appreciated. That's a lot of how I decide I land on what it is I'm going to talk about for the next episode, because you folks have reached out and said, hey, can you give some insight or give your opinion on a certain thing? And to be clear, we're at that phase of the season where you don't know everything that you need to know, but you can share what you see and what you hear. And those are important things as you head into the offseason, from the offseason to summer camp, to fall camp, to August 31st, and getting it done and beating Michigan. We were talking about the defensive backs, Tony White in this group. And there's a full change of culture and responsibility when it comes to defensive backs. To hear Malcolm Hartzog say, listen, I'm getting a lot of work at safety. And my eyes, I kind of leaned back. I went, whoa, wait a minute. What are we doing? And remember, Hartzog's not the biggest Husker. He's not the biggest Huskers. So then you have to make decisions. Okay, where does this mean? What does this mean? Putting people in positions where they can make plays. Well, as a top-level elite Big Ten ball hawk, putting him in the middle of the field means that he can make more plays in the middle of the field. But it also, when you do that, you are then putting him in the middle line of fire against some Big Ten runners or Wisconsin runners who are grown men. And how many times do you want Hartzog getting caught in the middle with Brandon Allen running downhill from Wisconsin? So there are some things that you have to consider along the way and what you're going to do with those folks. But Marcus Buford, Omar Brown has emerged in full. Right, so we now know that he is not only a player, but he's a playmaker, and he'll have the opportunity to help Nebraska be better defensively, as good defensively as they need to be. And then Quentin Newsome, I would think of the four, those are four that start, at least have the best opportunity to start, and then of course the rover being the fifth. And whether that's Javen Wright or Isaac Gifford, that gives you 5 in the back. That rover allows you to fill. You can go 3-4, 3-4-4. You can go 3-5-3. You can move the folks up, right? If you think folks are going to throw the short game. Well, 5 across means I'm asking people to defend very limited space and very closed throwing windows for teams that like to throw the short ball. I can stay in the 5 if I think folks are gonna try to outspeed us and go long. 5 back there kind of changes that as well. But if you think about that, the name that I have not mentioned is Tommy Hill. And Tommy Hill, after his up and down, horizontal, vertical season last year, playing offense, kick returning, issues, difficulty at corner, well, Tommy Hill has emerged as the athlete and the football player that they thought he was. And he's not alone in that, but that gives you a 5th pure defender, pass defender back there. He's certainly willing and available to stick his neck in there and make plays on run plays. But Corey Collier is a redshirt sophomore who, again, it's another name that has popped up in hearing coaches say, listen, pay attention to these players because they're doing things well, consistently and as coached. And I'll repeat that. Doing things well, consistently, as coached. That equals trust. And Tony White is not only gaining the trust of his players, but putting them in successful situations, but the players are getting the trust of Tony White. And that tells me that steps forward and up are being taken for the Huskers as they head towards August 31st. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every day. We'll close with these 3 words that we love so much. Go Big Red.